Thank you for following my YouTube channel. I've been talking about some of the old articles that I published at Missing Persons Commentary, and I've picked out some select articles to make a YouTube video discussion about. In this video, I would like to talk about the mysterious case of Beverly Sharpman. Beverly Sharpman was a minor who was 17 years old when she disappeared on September 11th, 1947. This was a voluntary disappearance, meaning she disappeared on her own, but she was only 17. So this was a case where technically she was a minor, but she was close to being adult. If she was 18 years old and she left a note saying that she was disappearing on her own, this case may have been handled very differently. That I don't know that that would be even a missing person. There's a big difference between being 18 and 17 legally. So when she disappeared at the age of 17, she's still the domain of her parents, right? So that her parents wanted her found is a factor in her being a missing person all these years. Most people who comment on this, they do assume that it was a voluntary disappearance. She left a telegram and she was spotted at the railway station in her town with a suitcase on the night of her disappearance. The telegram said that she had gotten married, that she was leaving town, and that she will not be back. This telegram message has sometimes been misquoted, and it has sometimes appeared as a misinterpretation. In fact, I would love to see the original telegram, just because this case, the telegram has been misquoted a lot. The one debate, and if you read enough people who have commented on Beverly Sharpman's case, the one debate is, some people have said the telegram said she was leaving town to get married. But in the original journalism, the telegram was reported to have said that she had already gotten married. And that's critical, because anybody who's really worked on this case, the amateur kind of mystery solvers, they have looked for her marriage certificate, scoured for it. This marriage certificate has eluded everybody, and there's some complications with that. Firstly, she's only 17 years old, and from what I read, she would not have been allowed to get married without parental permission. So the fact that the parents don't know who she was married to comes into question, like, well, did she get married at all? And then where your mind goes then is, okay, well, if she did get married, she would have had to get married under an assumed identity. That really complicates matters. You can't find her marriage certificate because of that, right? You don't know what name she used instead. That, she was a Caucasian woman in Philadelphia. We can assume she didn't marry under a Japanese name, something like that, but that's about it, right? That she was also close to state lines, so did she get married in Pennsylvania or did she go over the border? Don't know. There are a lot of marriage certificates that are in play as possibly belonging to her, and the most painstaking research method would be to go through all of them and make a pile of the people whose identities on the wife or the bride side that you could not verify that they existed. So you're going to have a big pile to go through in the original pile of all the marriage certificates from the time frame leading up to her disappearance. After you go through those, you're looking for brides. You're like, okay, this person never existed. Well, maybe it's Beverly Sharpman. Maybe that's the false identity she used. You're going to end up with a lot of those just because it's hard to verify. Somebody who married in 1947. Your own research methods might not detect them in ancestry. There is a research angle there, but it is a long one for a volunteer to take, and it's a long one for someone who's paid to take, because they have to be productive in their results. So there is a way to find her. It would just require a huge team of volunteers. But I think that would work. Having said that, we could talk about the day she disappeared. Another kind of mystery with this case is, why did she go to register for high school in the morning? She was entering her final year of high school. Why did she go to her high school and register in the morning if she was planning on leaving in the evening? There's a couple scenarios for that. Mainly, maybe she had a general plan of leaving but did not know when, and something happened that day that tipped things into, okay, let's go with her new husband. The other thing that might have, she might have behaved this way is she knows if she doesn't go register for high school that the school secretary or principal or staff member is therefore phoning her parents to ask what's going on. They might do that. Like, these schools, they get their budgets from the number of people who register to attend their school. So if they are expecting you to register and you do not, they might, okay, well, we don't want to lose our $3,000 in our budget for missing a student, so let's call this parent and make sure their kid comes. It might trigger a phone call if she doesn't go to register, which might trigger to her parents that something is up and she wants to keep that a secret. So she disappears from a train station and has never been seen again. That's impressive. If she is disappearing voluntarily at the age of 17, you're dealing with a pretty smart young woman who, of course, turned into an adult to evade all detection in the documentary system for the rest of her life, presuming that she's dead. She was born, I believe, in 1930, so she would be 94 or so at the time of writing. She could still be alive, and that's important too, and we'll get to that. But for her to evade all detection is very impressive. Now, the mother placed a series of classified advertisements to try and find Beverly Sharpman, her daughter. These all failed to produce any kind of tangible communication. There were some suggestions that Beverly Sharpman was alive from a couple of the classified ads, but you'll have to read those yourself. If you want to read about them, I did comment on them. But in this video, what I wanted to review was a couple of my main points that have to do with this classified ads. The classified ads always said things like this. Beverly Sharpman, please contact home. Your silence unbearable. Love, Mother. That appeared in the November 10th, 1947 edition of the Philadelphia Inquirer. Classified ads like this appeared for years into the future. In 1956, Beverly Sharpman, happy 26th birthday. Come home, we love you, Mom and Dad. That appeared in the August 19th, 1956 Philadelphia Inquirer. If there were more after that, I don't know. But the main point with that, the ads are mentioning her by the name Beverly Sharpman. Anybody who knows her after she speculatively married under a different name and into a different name, like the name that she put on her marriage certificate, that then changes to her husband's name, right? So there's two name changes. Anybody who knows her under the name Beverly Sharpman no longer knows her in her new life. Anybody who knows her in her new life probably will not know that she's Beverly Sharpman. And that's very important, because if you take this personally, the person listening to this, if somebody placed a classified ad mentioning you by name, wouldn't you agree that you're not likely to see it? That it would be someone in your circles who sees it, who then alerts your attention to that classified ad? That would not be working in this case. Anybody that's in Beverly Sharpman's circles does not know her original name. And I felt that was really important, and it could be an explanation as to why these classified advertisements failed. Next, there's also, next, I want to talk about a research angle that I had in this case. What I looked for. Firstly, I'll say, when I started working on this case, I was optimistic. because I felt that the person had survived the disappearance event, because I felt that it was a voluntary disappearance. So, if you know me, you know that I've completed courses on forensics and I've completed courses on private investigation. I'm not a private investigator. I don't have my official credential, but I've taken the courses to prepare you for it, just to help my freelance writing career. I felt that if I scoured over the relevant documents and the relevant databases, that I would find some kind of reference to her. I operated under the presumption that at some point in her life, she would have used the following phrase. The following phrase would have been associated with her in the documentary record. N-E-E Sharpman. N-E-E, that's a phrase that women use when they want to communicate what their maiden name was. It shows up in obituaries. It shows up in high school reunions, not that she was going to that, but if she died, I thought that the phrase N-E-E Sharpman, so that, like Beverly, let's assume her new name is Smith, Beverly Smith, N-E-E Sharpman, would have shown up somewhere. It did not. Even just the phrase N-E-E Sharpman without her first name, which might be an assumed name after 1947, that never showed up anywhere. But that is a research angle that you can take with whatever databases you're looking at. A million eyes are better than a set of one. If you, that's where I brought up the fact she might still be alive. So, when I did this back in 2018, she might have died since then. So you could duplicate my efforts and look in Ancestry, look in Find Her Grave, look in the classified ad databases for obituaries that use the phrase N-E-E Sharpman, and see if there's any potential that might be her. At one point, I thought I was looking at a picture of Beverly Sharpman as an old woman, but when I researched it more, no, I came to a different opinion. This was a perplexing case. It seemed like she disappeared on her own. You can really sense how sad the mother is for losing touch. There was lots to look at with this case, and overall, I felt that she was alive after September 11th, 1947, and to whatever end. Somebody could die naturally at any time, right? The only other thing I wanted to bring up was in my original publication, a missing persons commentary, dated Beverly Sharpman, NamUs MP titled Beverly Sharpman, NamUs MP number 7034, case details. I published that on February 18th, 2018, so coming up on 7 years ago. Somebody commented on my article, and this is what that person wrote. She wrote it on December 28th, 2019. I've been following a rabbit hole for quite some time and would love to speak with you about this. This is a comment on my article. I've been following a rabbit hole for quite some time and would love to speak to you about this case. I have a source saying they are her child. That was left by a random username named Mrs. Rowe. This is a username on Blogger, which is the forum that hosts my blog. I attempted to get this person to reply to me, and this person never did. And when I click on this person's profile, it's empty. So, these random usernames, they're kind of weird. Sometimes that is a big clue, and other times it's somebody with attention deficit or some kind of weirdo. But I would presume that maybe this person is being truthful as far as she knows, but maybe whether she actually does know something. There's been lots of people who have interjected themselves into a missing persons case, but it never ended up being true. People, if you know who Michael Dunahee is in Vancouver Island's most famous missing persons case, there have been people that have thought that they were Michael Dunahee, and they find out that they're not. Lots to think about there. All I had to say is I want people to be aware of that comment. The username was MRS, Mrs., then uppercase R, and then lowercase OE, so Mrs. Rowe. If you ever see the last name ROE among any kind of research angles, that's just the last name to remember. I don't know where Beverly Sharpman is, though, and I do hope that this missing person case gets resolved. So I have two sets of final thoughts on the Beverly Sharpman case, in terms of how she can be found. First, I want to just go over what I think happened. Um, I think she disappeared voluntarily. She had quit her job. She had withdrawn a large amount of money. The telegram. Um, in the days before her disappearance, she was quiet, but seemed to have a secret to reveal. So, what I think happened is she disappeared voluntarily at the age of 17. She's a minor. She's still domain of her parents. What secret did she have? Well, who she was marrying, was that a suspicious person? Now, what if she is pregnant? If she's pregnant at the age of 17, if it's an 18-year-old that got you pregnant, the law doesn't really get involved, right? Even though that's an adult having sex with a minor. If it's like a 45-year-old who got her pregnant, assumingly that she got pregnant, I think the law would start to look at that relationship then, right? The age of consent is kind of clear cut. I don't know what it is in Pennsylvania in the 1940s, but I do know that the application of the law is often inconsistent. But I do think that a 45-year-old that impregnates a 17-year-old, assuming that this is what happened, will face the law. He will face a trial. That's what I think. Now, if that is rape in that time frame, in that society, in that state, then it brings in the statutes of limitations. From what my understanding is, quite broadly, there's no statutes of limitations on rape for most kind of Western societies. I don't know the law in Pennsylvania in 1940s, and I'm not going to look it up. But that would be a motive for her to stay hidden forever, because if she ever outs herself as having given birth to a man who was, let's say, 20 to 30 years older than her, given birth to a man's child who was 20 years to 30 years older than her, and she loved him and the child, she knows that if she reveals her identity, it wrecks her home. So there's a motive why she would never come out and reveal who she was in a new life. Now, in terms of finding her, I can only think of two ways. The first is impossible in terms of realistically doing the work. You would need every single marriage record, and you would have to look at the bride in every single marriage record and find out if there's something fishy about the identification of the bride. Like, was the bride already dead? Sometimes people assume the identity of people who are already dead. Was the bride never existed? You can't find any reason to believe she was ever born. So it's just a total contrivance. That kind of work, that would be enormous, as I said earlier. The other lead that could actually work is just simply presupposing that whoever commented on my blog saying they knew who Beverly Sharpman's child might be, whoever said that, if the person's being truthful. I think earlier I said it was daughter. It's child, so it can be son. That Mrs. Rowe, that's ROE, this is her blogger profile. And this was the link of her blogger profile. If this person was not lying and said that when she stated that she knew who Beverly Sharpman's child might be, as soon as you have Beverly Sharp, you just look at Mrs. Rowe's social network if you can identify her, and then if you find somebody who's a candidate, the age is about right. As soon as you got Beverly Sharpman's child, you can identify Beverly Sharpman